Hey, Kings and Dragons, Dragon King 551 here, and today we're going to do a different type of video. We're going to talk about all the new rule changes that they have done for the future of next season for the 2024 Big Ten season into 2028. And we're going to talk about all of that. I have an article about Fox, and they just unveiled everything because Fox is the main streaming uh, network that mostly does the Big Ten games with Joel Klatt and Gus Johnson always on the call. But I just wanted to talk about a couple rules that I know off the top of my head before I go through the article. So I want to talk about one of the main things first. So first off, let's talk about this. And then I'll also talk about the Michigan schedules and which schedule looks the hardest. So first off, guys, you can see right here, um, Wisconsin, right? So you see Wisconsin right here, right? Well, what the thing is about Wisconsin is this is basketball, right? This is the 2021-2022 season, as you can see right here. However, whoops, hang out. However, with 2021 and 2022 and Wisconsin being, this right here, it shows that they had won the conference at, 15-5 and overall 25 and 8. The thing here is if you win your conference in college basketball, it states that the probability of you making the college March Madness tournament is in fact is a very isn't guaranteed 99% of the time. I was gonna say 90% of the time, but yeah, there's like only probably like a 2% chance that you don't make it because of strength of schedule. But if you win your conference championship, that's a lot asking for a team. But if you win it, you do get to go. So it could be the same thing in it as well and stuff. But all these other teams see below them that had better schedules. Obviously, Michigan didn't have the best schedule, but see this 23-10, 29-8, and 26-10, and 20-12. Those other teams also made the March Madness tournament last year. So it is possible for an 11-1 team or a 10-2 Penn State team or whoever it is to make the college football playoff next year if, in fact, they are that low. I always said that there will be 4 Big 10 teams, there will be 4 SEC teams, and the next 4 will be bids, regardless of who they are. I say Oregon looks really good right now. Washington looks really good. And let's wait until next year to see if these teams are still good because they have new quarterbacks coming in and some new players. Michigan is losing some senior players, but the transfer portal is still always there, so you can always get some better guys. Roman Wilson's leaving. Cornelius Johnson is leaving. Blake Corum's leaving. Donovan Edwards may be leaving. J.J. McCarthy may also be leaving. I don't know if they'll stay for their senior years. Mike Sainristil is also leaving. I don't know if he'll stay for another year. I think he's in his 5th year, so he may leave. Bo Nix is definitely going to leave because he's in his 5th year as well, due to COVID and everything else. But I digress. So let's move over to the this whole entire Big Ten thing. I'm not going to go through everything, but there are a couple of things. So the first season is obviously, with included hosting Oregon hosting Ohio State, Penn State at Southern California, and Michigan going to Washington. So these top teams are definitely going. So yeah, the Big Ten released 5 seasons worth of football opponents for each of its schools on Thursday. The conference adds USC, UCLA, Oregon, and Washington next year to the league that had all its schools in the Eastern and Central time zones. The other thing here is there are no more divisions. There's no winner of the West and there's no winner of the East. So when Michigan's song came out, they were in the West, but then they moved to the East. So the song is very old, their Hail to the Victor song. So if people are confused about that, yes, they originally were in the West, but then they moved to the Eastern Conference. So yeah, this is the conference. They just released it. So game dates will be released later. Not that that matters. The Big Ten schedule will remain 9 games. I thought it was 8 games. I thought you had to play at least 8 games, and then four games could be outside. I think it is 9. I'm maybe wrong. I know it's the first 3 games. So yeah, I'm sorry. It's 9 games. I thought it was 8, and I apologize if I ever said that in a video. You learn something every time, and I did not know it was 9 games for the last couple of years. I thought it was 8, and I apologize for that. Starting in the 2024, the conference will scrap its division format, which has already been determined before the latest expansion. So obviously they had to do that. The Big Ten had released opponents for 2024 and 2025 seasons. The first with USC and UCLA in June, but those needed to be torn up after the conference expanded west again in August, with Oregon and Washington also leaving the Pac-12 behind in the dust because they're richer schools and they want better competition. This is what they said. So the commissioner said we had to go back to the drawing board and do this rotation again. Big Ten commissioner said we're staying with a lot of the principles that were in place when we did the original announcement back with USC and UCLA, being integrated, the core concepts, competitive balance, connecting the whole conference, trying to be mindful of travel, protecting the traditional rivalries. All of those things are in the process. The one thing is, in next year's season, Michigan does not play Penn State, so they don't play all three state teams. They don't play They play Michigan State and Ohio State because those are their rivalry games. Penn State's not really a rivalry game, and that's another reason why it's not being played. The Big Ten calls its scheduling model Flex Protect, which locks in important annual rivalry games, but does not require every team to have the same number of protected games. The 18 team model, yeah, now it's a big 18. Add 2 more teams while you're at it, make it the Big 20. Has 12 protected annual matchups. Illinois and Northwestern, Illinois and Purdue, Indiana and Purdue, Iowa and Minnesota, Iowa and Nebraska, Iowa and Wisconsin, Maryland and Rutgers, Michigan and Michigan State, Michigan and Ohio State, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Oregon and Washington, and USC and UCLA. Those are rivalry games, and those are the 12 protected annual matchups that must be played because they have always been around since the dawn of time, since the moment Michigan made their football known, since the moment that Michigan State made their football known in 1901 and 1902 was like one of their biggest blowout games that Michigan did. But yeah, I digress. Teams will play every conference opponent at least twice, home and away, during a 5-year period, but no more than 3 times. So I don't know what that really means. I think what it means is like they'll play them, and then I don't know. Notably, the West Coast schools are not guaranteed to face each other every season. In 2024, Oregon and USC do not play each other, but Washington and UCLA play each of the other 3, 4 former Pac-12 schools. So yeah, Washington's 5 conference road games in 2024 will include 3 trips into the Eastern time zone, Indiana, Rutgers, and Penn State, and another to the Central time zone at Iowa and along with Oregon. None of the current schools will be required to make more than 1 trip to the West Coast in any season. So if USC and Oregon are being played next year for Michigan State, which they are home games. The one team that they will have to travel against is Washington in Washington State up there, the closest to Canada and stuff. Or I forget which state is higher. I think it's Oregon or Washington. I can't remember. But the point is that they have to travel out there, one of those 2 states. I think that's it with this article. So that's pretty much it, what I have there for that part. Let's go look at our opponents for Michigan Wolverines, obviously. So this is obviously the opponents. I just saw this on Instagram, so I said, let me take this picture. So these are the 9 games for home and away for the 2024 season. However, there is one more game I know of right now, which is Texas, which they also will play outside their conference, which proves that Michigan does have a pretty tough schedule next year. They have 3 trophy games, Minnesota, Northwestern, and Michigan State, the Little Brown Jug, the Paul Bunyan Trophy, and I forget what the other one is called, but I think they won that in the 2021 or 2022 season. Excuse me, I don't remember which season it was, but I know that they won the trophy. Then they play Oregon and USC at home, so that's going to be tough. Obviously, I don't know when these games are being played as of right now, and when the season does start next year in September, I'll know. This is the most important thing. Michigan must win a national championship this year because it gives them the easiest schedule and everything else, and they have the best chance at winning because all of their players are like seniors, and it's time. But the other thing is that it's going to be tough for Oregon and USC because their states don't get extremely cold. USC can get cold at night to like 60s. Oregon 50s, maybe 40s, but not that cold in Michigan, where Michigan's right up against Canada there, and you get 32-degree weather and stuff. Illinois, Indiana, Ohio State, and Washington. Washington, cold state too, but not too cold, so Michigan won't struggle that much. But, Michigan doesn't really... Michigan's not going to struggle against Washington that much because, I mean, it's not that warm of an environment. It's not that cold of an environment. But when you go to a warm environment, see, this is what I'm talking about. This is what's going to help teams get ready for that warm, cold environment. Because in the 12-team expansion, you will be able to host a home game in cold or warm environment, whichever, if you're the higher seed or whatever. But if they do some of that bowl game format where you're in a neutral site and it's a warm environment type thing, I think you'll be most likely ready because you've already played in warm environment teams already during the season. So the next year is 2025. All right, so you got 4 home games. You got Purdue, Washington, Wisconsin, and Ohio State. We haven't played Wisconsin in a long time. We don't play them this year. We don't play them next year. We play them in 2025. That's not that bad. And as you can see, we don't play Maryland either in 2024. So we play them the next year after that. We play them this year. So Maryland, Michigan State, Nebraska, Northwestern, and USC. So as you can see, we still play 2 trophy games. There's no Minnesota, so we still play 2 trophy games on our schedule. And now moving along, this is our first year in 2026 where we'll play UCLA. So Indiana, Iowa, Michigan State still trophy game. Then we play Penn State again, UCLA. Trophy game from Minnesota, Ohio State, Oregon, and Rutgers away. So we'll play Oregon at home. Obviously, I'll probably go to the Rutgers game again. I love going to the Rutgers games, watching Michigan trounce the team. But and I'll probably go out to a lot of these other games as well. I want to see Michigan play Texas if it's a home game. But yeah, I mean, I do want to see Rutgers get killed again. I always love watching that. It's fun. But yeah, I mean, that's not that bad of a schedule. I don't know what more you can do. You got you got Illinois, Ohio State, Oregon, and Rutgers in 2027. In the way, you got Indiana, Iowa, Michigan State, Penn State, and UCLA. That doesn't seem that bad. I mean, UCLA and USC is not that different. I mean, it's in the same stadium. It's in the Coliseum. Yeah, it doesn't seem like they have actually a legitimate, I don't know where their college is and how close they are to that stadium, but it doesn't seem like they have a football stadium like Oregon and all these other teams, but it is what it is. So yeah, I mean, I don't think that's bad of a struggle. I might be going to the Penn State game this year. Definitely a tough environment. Loud. My friend has been to a Penn State game. He says really loud. Michigan's really loud. It's going to be tough. I mean, Oregon and USC are going to have a rude awakening when you have 115,000 fans plus, screaming at you and stuff in an environment like that. Or Penn State when they play these teams. You got to watch out. So, yeah, 2027 doesn't seem that bad. I think definitely 2024 seems like the toughest schedule. I know a lot of people are saying, "Oh my God, they're going to play top of the 4 of the top 10 teams next year, or 5 of the top 10 teams next year." And it's like, well, hold on. Let's see where Texas falls after Ewers leaves and we got Arch Manning there. Let's see what happens with Bo Nix and their team. Let's see what happens with Caleb Williams. Let's see what happens with Washington and everything else. Let's see how that works. Let's see what happens with Michigan. Let's see what happens with that. Ohio State's also losing wide receivers. Let's see how strong these teams can recruit in recruiting and also bringing guys into the transfer portal. Now, honestly, I think Colorado is going to be great in the Big 12. They'll probably trounce everyone. So 2028, again, we play Maryland. We play them at home. Michigan State, Nebraska, Northwestern, again, 2 trophy games. USC, rivalry game, trophy game, Ohio State, Purdue, Washington, and Wisconsin. And, we play. So, yeah, it switches, but it seems like there is a gap here. So you see Washington in 2024, we play them again, and then we don't play them for 3 years and stuff in that time span. We don't play them until 2028, which is kind of interesting. But as that article said, it's a 3-year time span necessarily, and then they just change it. The one thing, though, is that those 2 teams are locked. So you'll always see Ohio State and Michigan State on Michigan's schedule, and vice versa. If you were a fan of Michigan State or Ohio State, you will always see Michigan on your schedule for those games. Same way with Penn State, your rivalry games will always be on that schedule. The only thing is that Penn State and Ohio State and Michigan State, they're not really rivals, so we don't know where that game stacks up. But again, this is for the future of the 2024 and everything else in between. What do you guys think? Do you think that you know, everything looks great? Do you think this is going to help the Big Ten in a way? You Big Ten fans, what do you think? Do you think this helps or do you think this hurts? Personally, I think it helps because let me tell you right now, what you're going to have to look at is where they drop when the college football playoff ranking comes out. And did Michigan beat a top 10 opponent at the time when they played them? If they did, then you're going to have to put that in strength of schedule and determine that. So let's say Oregon, Washington, USC, and UCLA. Obviously, I don't see them all playing that on their schedule. I mean, they have 3 out of the 4. But let's say they play all 4 teams, hypothetically. And then they play Ohio State as well and Texas, if that was the 2024 season. What would happen? Well, let's say Michigan beats all 6 of those teams that I just described, and they were all top 10. Michigan was, again, maybe becomes the number 1 team in the country, but beats all those teams and, beats the top 6 behind them and knocks them all off. What do you do then? Well, the answer is Michigan guaranteed the number 1 spot, and you knocked off the top 6 opponents. So what you got to do is you got to do what you got to do and put them as strength of schedule and everything else. But let me know your thoughts. Does it hurt? I personally don't think so. I personally think it helps because if these teams are strong and you play them physical and you win that game, that's what it's going to be. Honestly, I'm tired of it, guys. No. Okay, I've said it before and I've said it again in YouTube Shorts. Warm weather does not affect you as much as cold weather. Cold weather, you're breathing harder, your muscles are tightening up. Hot weather, I have played blacktop basketball. I have played football in 80-degree weather. I've played football on the beach in 90-degree weather. I have played it on the grass, okay? It's not that hard to play football in warm weather. It's harder to play in cold weather. The ball is colder. It's harder. That's why I'm telling you, when these southern teams travel to northern team environments like Michigan State, Ohio State, Penn State, anywhere like that, you are going to struggle, son. But that's all I got for this video. So until next time, guys, don't forget to stay radical. I'll see you in the next one. And as they say, go blue.